guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we will take a look at some new revenge content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, "The foreman at my old job decided to be a stickler about punctuality and threatened to fire me, so I wasted as much of his time as possible before quitting." This happened about 3 years ago. I had recently graduated college but hadn't been able to find a job in my field engineering, so I started looking for another job in the meantime to pay my bills. I get hired by a machine shop as a CNC machine operator. I was working there for about a month when the foreman decides he needs to teach me a lesson about punctuality. I admit I was late more than I should have been, maybe once a week, but it was almost always by less than a minute, and the latest I'd been was by 2 minutes, but I always made sure to make up for it by staying a few minutes after my shift. For context, this job was 7 to 3:30 and I had a 50-minute commute, so traffic was often unpredictable. After he gave me a friendly reminder/warning, I started to leave about 5 minutes early to avoid being late. About a week later, there was an accident on the highway that slowed traffic down. I arrived at work and clocked in. 7:03 a.m. I turn around and see the foreman standing there with his hands on his hips. The conversation went like this. "Foreman, you're late." Me, "Yeah, I know there was an accident on the highway." Foreman, "I don't hear an excuse." Me, "Sorry, I'll make up for it by staying late like I always do." Foreman, "Oh. So now you're trying to justify being late? You don't get to show up for work just when you feel like it." Me, getting upset at this point, "No, I'm saying I'll make up for it." Now you're accusing me of not caring when I show up? Foreman, "You know what, why don't you go home? I'll call you when I decide I want you back." I said duck it and left, not wanting to waste any more of my time on this pointless argument. I called the employment office and told them what happened. They start looking for a new job for me. I get a call from them the next day and they told me that the machine shop owner wanted me to come in for a meeting. Cue the petty revenge. I drive over to the machine shop, and while I'm in the parking lot I make a phone call, more on that later, and make sure to clock in before heading into the meeting. As soon as I sit down, the owner's phone rings and he ignores the call. It turns out this was less of a meeting and more of a chance for the foreman to lecture me about diligence, punctuality and respect. I get the feeling he was some ex-military CO. If you expect to get anywhere in life, you must have respect for your superiors. I try to explain myself, mentioning the commute, the accident, making up for lost time at the end of my shift, how the guys on the floor are always saying that I'm doing a great job, but he's having none of it. He keeps getting angrier and angrier and finally decides that I'm a lost cause and officially fires me. I look him in the eye with a poo-eating grin on my face, chuckling. Foreman, you think this is funny? Me, yep. I turn to the owner. You got a phone call from the temp agency earlier, didn't you? Why don't you play the message they left? Temp lady, "Hi Bill, this is Carol from Employment Solutions. I just received a call from Darth Raxius saying that he isn't interested in working for your company anymore. If you could send me over the rest of his time cards, we'll start looking for a new machine operator for you." They both look at me dumbfounded. Me, "We've been talking for, let's see, 52 minutes. I checked all of my time cards and it turns out that I have only been late a total of 8 minutes and 32 seconds since I started working here. Since you decided to die on this hill, I thought let's see how much this precious minutes meant to you. You have wasted 20 times the man hours on this pointless meeting. I hope you're happy. Learn how to pick your battles, Corporal." I walked out, clocked out, and got on unemployment. I never heard from them again. Next one is titled, "Park your bike on the way and be nasty about it." Good luck finding it tomorrow. We lived in a building complex with a common garden for everyone living there. Everyone is generally nice and minding their own business. Except Bill and Karen, living on the ground floor. She would smoke all day, with all that smoke coming in the upper apartments, being really nasty in summer. Bill is a football fan, would get drunk on Saturdays evening, and then scream at kids playing in the garden when he was having a hangover the day after. They had the cutest dog though. We moved after 3 years there. We're cordial with Bill and Karen throughout the years. On the move-out day, my wife's dad brought a trailer you can attach to a car that we brought in the garden so it's easier to bring the boxes. There was a red bike on the path leading to the garden, so I moved it to the bike rack. We got with the first batch of boxes, and on our way back, again the red bike on the path. I move it again. Third time, no bike, but there comes Bill towards us, looking agitated. Bill, are you the ones moving my bike? Wife's dad, yes, it's in the pathway, so we moved it to the rack there with the other bikes. Bill, you have no rights to touch my bike. Me, it's a path that needs to be cleared for ambulances or firemen. Bill, you touch my bike again, I'll call the police, you hear me? He's pointing his finger at us while walking away. My wife's dad is just laughing at the idiot, but I'm annoyed because it's getting dark and I'm tired of the moving. So on the last trip after the apartment was empty, I took Bill's stupid bike, which again stood in the path, and parked it round the block in a bike parking with 50 other bikes. Good luck, Bill. Next one is titled, Destroy My Garden, I'll Kill Your Plants. This story would otherwise be suited to Am I the A-hole, except that I, 53 female, already know I'm the A-hole. In May 2019, my husband, 59 male, and I bought a house with extremely neglected landscaping. We knew going in that it was a huge project and would likely take a few years to get it to a point where we wanted it. We both work full time. I spend a minimum of an hour a day doing yard work, usually more. I've planted ground cover in most of the existing flower beds, but am working on a mixture of plants and cover in the front of the house. I barely know what I'm doing and it's coming along, but I do get a lot of weeds because I'm trying to grow the ground cover as opposed to laying mulch. Last week DH decided to go around the house and spray weeds, and he sprayed a bunch of my plants in my front flower bed. I'm sure he didn't intend to sabotage my efforts, but nevertheless, I'm livid. There are a few random tree saplings growing in some of the beds that my husband wants to let grow so he can replant them in the fall. While I was pulling weeds this morning and noticed the dead plants, I took the clippers and cut down the saplings. I feel so much better now. Next one is titled, Holy Moly, I'm Riding the High of a Lifetime from Petty Revenge. I'll keep this as short as possible. I was biking around downtown and got a flat tire, so I went to the nearest shop to get it fixed. They only allow one person in the store at a time due to COVID, so when it was my turn I went inside and talked to the middle-aged woman at the cash. To be honest, she wasn't very polite, but I thought nothing of it because not only do I work in retail and know what it's like, but everything is 10 times worse right now due to COVID. So anyways, after tolerating her for a few minutes, she tells me to wait outside until the bike is ready. Cool, no problem. I wait outside for maybe 15 minutes or so before I see my bike get brought back up to the cash. I waited a few more minutes for the lady to invite me back inside, but to no avail. After a few more minutes of waiting, I let myself inside, to which she said, "Excuse me, your bike isn't ready yet. Wait outside until I tell you it's ready." Cool, no problem. I gave her another 15 minutes of my time before letting myself back inside, and we had this exchange. "Lady, do you not like to listen? I told you to wait until your bike is ready." Me, "I'm sorry, I just noticed the repairman bring the bike back up and I think it's ready." Lady, "Too bad, it hasn't been fixed yet." This broke me, so I just said, "Okay, thanks for your time, I'll be leaving." She looked a little flustered but nonetheless held the door open for me as I grabbed my bike, walked outside, and rode away with a free tire change. Next one is titled, Thwarting a Drive-Thru Scam. So I'm in a drive-thru at a fast food restaurant. I pull up to the window to get my food. A polite young gentleman tells me the total is $10.91. I give him 11 bucks. When he hands me my change, he drops the nickel on the ground. Now, normally when this happens to me, the employee will react and say oops or I'm sorry, and I will dismiss it and say no big deal and drive on. But this time the employee said nothing and just looked at me as if nothing had happened. It was impossible not to hear the nickel hit the concrete. So, immediately I had a weird feeling about it. And I was gonna get my damn nickel. I already knew what to expect when I looked down at the ground. Quarters and nickels and dimes galore, a few pennies, but 95% was silver. So I reached down to get my nickel, and as I was doing that I said to him, "Oh, look at all this money people dropped," and I took all of it. When I came back up with my handful of silver, his whole mood was different. He handed me my food without even looking at me. Next one is titled, "You Like Honking? I'll Give You Honking." I was driving in city traffic with my husband today when I witnessed some lovely petty revenge. There was a car 2 cars back from us honking up a storm. There was nothing anyone could do to move faster. The light would change and the car 2 cars behind us would already be honking despite there being no way for anyone to move yet. My husband is a pretty impatient guy, and even he thought this person was being overly aggressive. The car in front of the honker finally stopped and made the impatient person go around them. Then they turned the tables and started laying on the horn every time the honker had to stop for lights or traffic. We were enjoying watching the honker's face in the rear view mirror as they sat at an intersection too jammed to get through with their former victim riding their bumper with their horn blaring. I hope they learned something. Last one is titled, HS. Teacher used to call me a loser and I would never amount to anything. Ran into her 20 years later on an elevator at my office at the same university where her husband works. I went to high school in a small southeastern US town. During my junior year, 11th grade, I had a US history teacher who always acted like she was better than anyone else. She was the type that would always say things semi-jokingly about students, which she thought were funny, but came off as pretty mean and hurtful. Unfortunately, she was really popular with parents and the administration, because to be fair, she was a good teacher and her students did well year after year on the AP exams, taken to earn college credits if you got a high enough score, so she got away with insulting whomever she wanted to insult. Also, she was the type who bragged about being married to a professor. She actually had an affair with him when she was his student and he was married to his first wife, but I digress. At the time, I was dating a guy, also a junior, who happened to be the friendly neighborhood school drug dealer. This was the 80s, so pot and mushrooms were the go-to recreation, nothing too hard, and looking back I think it was a far more innocent time. Our school was a notorious party school, and sat adjacent to the university's dorms. The university was a notorious party school as well, so town was known around the region as a party place. Most parents took it in stride, because many of them were university employees or local business owners. Our teachers were pretty cool too, for the most part. Many of them went to the same university, so they knew the town and the local vibe. However, this teacher liked to talk crap about the party type kids, saying they would not amount to anything, end up in jail, die of overdoses, etc. She was always picking on us, saying we were bad eggs and losers. One day, grocery shopping with my mom, we saw her in the parking lot, and she came over to speak to us. She started off by saying that I was doing poorly in her class. I was not. I had an A at the time, and that my grades were declining because I was dating that boy, in the most dramatic snarky southern accent you can imagine. Then she proceeds to tell my mom she was raising a junkie and a hoe and I would not amount to anything. My mom shot something equally snarky back, I can't remember exactly what, but she came to my defense swiftly, and my teacher scurried off with a shocked look as my mom embarrassed her pretty severely. My parents were the type of parents that were pretty laid back. They knew I was not doing anything worse than what they did in college. I just started partying in high school. Looking back, maybe they were a bit too laid back. The rest of the school year was uncomfortable, to say the least. I dreaded going to her class. She seemed to make my life miserable at every chance, and now worked in insults about my mom too. I was really hurt, and never forgot how mean she was. I did graduate the next year, went to college, worked for many years in government, then went back to school and got my PhD. I became a professor at the university in my HS town. I never ended up being a junkie or a hoe, however. Riding the elevator one morning to my office, guess who gets on with me? Yep. She was going to visit her husband, who was a professor in another department in the same building. I was not going to say a thing, just stand there biting my tongue, but she recognized me, but can't remember my name, so I reintroduced myself, and she exclaims, "Oh, Afiza. I can't believe it is you. How are you?" I gave a polite, but cool response, and she said in her same snarky tone, "What are you doing here at Psy?" I looked her dead in her eye, and said, "Going to my office." "Your office?" She replied, "Oh, aren't you the funny one?" I did not say anything, but when I got off the elevator, I turned around, pointed down the hall to my office. "Down the hall on the left, Department 20, if you want to drop by. Ask for Dr. Afiza." And I smiled the fakest smile, flipped her off and said, "Good to see you," returning the snarky attitude. Additional mildly amusing information, I worked with her husband a few times on various committees. He used to try to get me to go to dinner or out with him. I think just her knowing I was a professor was petty enough for me to feel gratified. Thanks for listening.